Hello, I'm Earl Gibbs, and welcome to Speaking of Everything. With me this evening, I have a very interesting guest for the first time on the program. Now, we have sponsors as the Windward Island Bank. The Windward Island Bank for all your banking needs. So, look for mortgage, car loan, whatever, it's the Windward Islands Bank. And GEBE, our local water and electricity company. GEBE service in running for over 6 decades. And with me this evening here, and speaking of everything, I'm saying this evening while this is on YouTube and it's any time of the day. I have with me this evening, again, made the same mistake. I've been doing this for over 38 years, and that's why I'm making this mistake all the time. My guest is President of the USP Party, Mr. Nicholas. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's good to have you in the program. How are things going so far?
Well, everything is okay. I mean, we're in this, we're preparing, I would say, in the preparation stages of preparing for upcoming elections, which should be in 2024. Hopefully, the way things look, it might be earlier, but we say 2024, early 2024. And the party is right now in the process of putting things in place, the preparations and plans for running this country once elected.
Well, I have to ask you a little about yourself so people can know who Mr. Nicholas. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Who is Mr. Nicholas? I'm a son of the soil. My mother's name is Maria Violinas, father Cecil Nicholas. I'm 51 years of age. I did my studies in St. Martin. Went to Milton Peters College. I left before I graduated. I went to the U.S. I went to high school. I finished my high school studies in the U.S. As well as college. I have a degree in sociology with a specialization in urban deviance. And I'm an entrepreneur.
Okay, so how long now since you've been president of the USP Party?
I've been president now. This is my second term. I'm also a founder of the United St. Martin Party. We were formed in 2014, and I was the first president then. And we've had one other president, Miss Delphine Agnes Brooks, and I succeeded her with our last Congress.
Well, so you started from right at the beginning.
Yeah, kind of jumped in and learned how to swim after, I don't, people label you sometimes, they say you're a politician. Oh, Cecil is a politician. But for me, I don't see myself as a politician. Coin a phrase, I see myself as a social activist that got involved in politics.
So, but how you feel about politics? Because it could be very nasty, it could be very dirty at times.
I'll tell you this. It's very unrewarding. A lot of times there's a lot of criticism against politicians or people in the political arena. But I'll say this: it comes with a lot of personal sacrifice. You sacrifice privacy. You're often criticized, whether justly or unjustly. And I think people underestimate what it really takes and what kind of a sacrifice. Any individual that chooses to get involved in politics, what kind of a sacrifice that is. It's a huge, huge sacrifice.
I want to jump back a little bit because of what you mentioned to the former party leader, Franz Richardson. Here you had a young man who loved this island and loved the people of St. Martin. I remember people that could not find a job, I'll call him and say, look, this person. He wouldn't ask, or who's this person? No, he just go and make sure that the person was qualified and they got the job. He really sacrificed and cared for St. Martin people. And then you look around and you see what they did to him. Sometimes it kind of discouraged people. So people get in there and say, you know what, I'm going to go in there and I'm just going to take care of myself and no one else. And that's really bad.
But, it has a lot to do with focus too. We sometimes as a people, we think that someone else has to save us. Someone has to save the country, but it's the country was built on our backs, our ancestors' backs, and we are the only ones that can save ourselves.
Yeah.
There is no saving grace. There's no country or no other body in the world that's going to come in here and save us. We have to recognize who we are as a people. We have to understand what we want, and we have to work together to achieve that.
But I think, Mr. Nicholas, what happens, Simran, is that over the years, that I've been involved in broadcasting, I noticed that whenever we can't solve a problem among ourselves, we look towards outside forces to solve that problem. And if outside forces is going to solve that problem, it's not going to be in our interest.
I think it's even beyond that. I think we're a small community. If I go back when I was growing up, I think the population in the 80s or the late 70s, the population was merely 10,000 people, if I'm not mistaken, right? So we have evolved past that. We have educated a lot of people over the past 30, 40 years. And what has happened now is there's a lot of people that knows the fact from fiction, and a lot of times we are afraid to call a spade, and so in order for us not to do the so-called dirty work, or us not to point the finger at each other, we're hoping somebody else will come in and do that for us. And that is one of the things we have to really look within ourselves as a country, as a people, and decide what we want and how we want. What do we want this country to look like 15, 20 years from now? What do we want it to look like? Do we want it to continue to look like us? Do we want to continue to be represented as a people, or do we want our savior to be here, and will that really truly help?
Well, it's so unfortunate, because it looks like our problems are not going away. They're actually getting worse. And that is surprising to a lot of people like myself, we've been in the struggle from the 80s. I remember as a young man coming back here, they had roundtable conferences. Aruba left the Nelson Cities. Now the Nelson Cities no longer exist. We thought everything will be better. It seems like it's just getting worse.
I think a lot of it is short-sightedness in terms of immediate fixes to whatever issues we may have had. I think we're lacking of a long-term plan. We are susceptible to hurricanes, and that usually has our focus, especially when we have a devastating one like we had in 2017. The last 5 years has been a challenge for not only Siman but for the world. Having the hurricane in 2017 and then having the pandemic after that, was really a burden. But again, I think we lack proper planning, and I think with proper planning, we can see ourselves moving forward, and who do we want to be is my question. What do we want this country to be like in the next 20 years? What do we expect? I've been around for quite some time, and this is usually the same talk about diversification, but we're not doing much. We talk a lot, but there's not a lot of action behind it.
And I think that's our biggest problem, is that we take too long to make decisions. We talk a lot about them, but nothing happens. And if you look at your party, it's still a relatively young party compared to the coalition government. And even the coalition government, there's only one old party there, because the other one, that has been morphing into all different types of parties. But coming to the USB party, what do you think are the core principles of your party?
Well, we have always stood, we have always stood for the people. We champion ourselves as a party made of the people, for the people. We have always championed that cause. All of this up with the little bit of times. Well, we had the opportunity to govern in 2016, 2017, and what we were able to accomplish in the short span, I think it was 9 months at that time. It only showed us and proved us that we are capable, number one, and number two, our eyes are set in the right direction.
Yeah.
It gave us confidence. People see us as a big party. Some people see us as a big party, but we went through our growing pains. We've been in existence since 2014. And like any party, we've had our challenges, but our core remains, and our core principles remain.
You all have a new leader now, Mrs. Cotton Cardi. How's it been so far?
So far, so good. I mean, she proved herself back in 2017. Was that? No, that was 20.
When she was minister?
18, 19, when she was minister. Yeah. She came out the gate. She had a plan. She saw an issue and she tackled it and got it done. What surprised me about that, during campaign, everybody goes, on a campaign trail. You go to people's homes. They tell you about their problems. They tell you about the issues. Every parliamentarian, when she was called to parliament, I was actually dumbfounded, because every parliamentarian that had questions, they were people that ran on a campaign trail. She didn't campaign, mind. She was appointed by the party, right? So they had first-hand experience and knowledge of what the challenges of the working class people were facing. So even question why she would make a decision to try and put locals first, it boggled my mind.
Yeah. But I think she was very dynamic, and she wasn't afraid to stand her ground. And I think that's so important, because I remember having her on this program, and people was begging and asking why she could not continue as minister.
Well, the government changed, ironically, we actually wanted to appoint her to be the Minister of Finance, because she has a background in finance. There was some issue that they claimed was a reason why she couldn't sit as Minister of Finance, which turned out to be false allegations or unfounded allegations. And she was appointed, and even that situation was a little bit crazy, because if you pass the screening, how can you pass the screening to sit in as one minister but not as the other minister? Again, this new status that we have and these new rules, they weren't really tested. As you would see in the case of Minister Otley, he had the same issue. He couldn't pass. Then he would challenge the situation and he could pass. We don't really know. These things are there, but we unchallenged, they really disrupt what plans you have. Anyway, she was appointed to be the minister of VSR Labor, and she did a fantastic job. She went in with a focus to put locals first. Some may not have agreed. I think maybe with more time you could have a proper understanding of what she was trying to accomplish, but it made sense. There's job openings in market. They give them technical names, and with that technical name somebody's brought in. At the end of the day, what is the core? What is the responsibility of that job position? What qualifications do you need? Do we have them locally? And I think that is what she was trying to get at. If we have the qualifications locally, let's put a local person in that position.
And I think she was the ideal person, because at the time, your party leader, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, is a person who really cares about Simran people and want to make sure that all people got jobs where they are qualified and where they were being overlooked.
Right. She fit the mold perfectly. Not only the mold, but she fits the party perfectly. We consider ourselves a family, and like any family, we have disagreements, but we put it all on the table and we agree to disagree, and we move forward. There's no one individual that makes this party. This party is consists of a team. It's a team effort all the time. I think that is why even when we came out in 2014, people were like, "Oh, you guys ain't going nowhere. There's no seats for you." There was always the negative tones, but that never dissuaded us. We got 2 seats the first time we came out. We got three seats the second election after that, and we've maintained 2 seats. And I would like to thank all those that support the party and stood behind us through thick and thin. We're here to fight for this country. There's a lot, and even when you look at who Franz Richardson is, and like you said, and how he approached things. Those principles are instilled in the party. So we have a lot of people, like-minded people, that want good for each other. There's no reason why we should have this disparity between who have in St. Martin and who has not.
Right.
Especially if you have a situation where people are not capable or they don't have the knowledge.
Right.
But we like I said, we have 40 years of educating the people in this country. How many people are really coming back to fill positions?
And that's a big problem, because we are looking to other parts in the former Dutch Caribbean, like Suriname, for people to fill positions that our people should be filling. Nothing against people from Suriname or Curacao, but we have sufficient time to take care of this problem. And today we are still confronted where we just can't find our people to fill certain positions, and they're afraid to come back to.
Well, it's for me, it's about networking. I could remember my brother's generation. I could remember his generation. He was probably 2 generations before me when he went away to get an education, to get a high degree. Initially, he was told that he needs experience. So we went through some phases. We had the whole get experience, and then when you got the experience, we had the whole you're overqualified, and then after that there was like, because you had people that stayed wherever they went to school, and they got the experience, so they earned a higher salary, came home, and the first thing you would get is, I don't know if I can afford to pay you. But for me, when somebody decides to come back home, they're not looking at the salary, even though they know that the salary is not what they it's a sacrifice to come, right? But if you're applying for a job at the corporation that can afford to pay you, I find it very disrespectful when you say I can't afford to pay you, because then you're not allowing me the opportunity to show you what I'm capable of, what I'm going to bring to the company, and based on what I'm bringing to the company, then you give me a valuation based on that. And because they can afford it, some companies can't afford it.
But they pay to other outsiders.
Correct. So, but again, there's this notion that we are underqualified, or we're somehow not deserving of a high paid salary. So then you have the whole network. We grew into this thing of you have a certain nationality that's holding these positions. So when positions open up around that, they automatically you call somebody they happen to be from your country. So we're in a position where we really have to take stock and focus on what we really want, how we want to move forward, and really come up with a concrete plan to move the country forward.
The sad thing here is that it's not being done by people from Europe. What you mentioned is being done by our own elected officials most of the time. We have people elected to parliament, others appointed to government as ministers. When they hold these positions, they change. They turn against the very people that put them there, and that's unfortunate.
I don't know if they change so much. Then I'll say this: humility takes you a long way, and if you're not a humble individual, that position of being a parliamentarian, or that position of being a minister, and the power that comes with it, you will not use that well. You may lose focus, and I think a lot of the times, not a lot of the times, I'll say this, I'll be frank with you. The old people that say, when something come easy, it ain't gonna last, right? We had a political history of polarization, so one party against the next, right? Over time, that has changed, and you have splinter parties for different reasons. I think that the challenge that the ministers today have, other than the Prime Minister, the Honorable Prime Minister, who has been around this for quite some time, I think the challenge they have is that they haven't been exposed to it long enough. They don't understand the history behind what they're really representing, other than I'm going to be a minister and I'm going to do this and that for the country. So without that proper understanding, you can't really focus on what you need to do. When you get there, it's about what I'm going to accomplish for the country, as opposed to what is the history behind this chair that I'm sitting in, what has been done in this chair that I'm sitting, what was unfinished in this chair that I'm sitting that I'm going to complete, or that I'm going to move the country in this direction or the other. Yeah.
Well, in case you just joined us, you're watching Speaking of Everything. I'm Earl Gibbs. I'm here speaking with the President of the USP Party, Mr. Cecil Nicholas. Mr. Cecil Nicholas is my guest, and Mr. Nicholas, we're going to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to continue speaking right here with you, all right?
In order to know what you want out of life, you need to observe, listen, and try it yourself. Promises, we can make it if we work together. That's just how it is. Let's stand strong, and serve the land. Working hard as one nation, yes we can. The more difficult
us to achieve, the more satisfying it is to make it.
Just believe in us, we'll see you through it all. Oh, never give up. Oh, never give up. We can make it.
Never forget those who were there for you. And if you dream big, you might just achieve it.
The power to serve, standing for community. OGEB got the power to serve, the power to serve. We got the energy. OGEB.
Make use of WIB mobile banking with easy access and direct usage of face recognition, PIN code, or fingerprint. Download WIB mobile banking app and make your transaction from anywhere at any time. For more information,
my guest on Speaking of Everything is Mr. Nicholas. Mr. Nicholas is the president of the USB party, and we're here to speak with him about the political party. You know, Mr. Nicholas, your party got to go to parliament with 2 parliamentarians, but during that time, some very strange things happened. I don't know how you feel about it, and I'm being cautious by saying strange things because I don't want to say things that are not so, or maybe you might perceive it as different. So I'll ask you.
I wouldn't say strange things. You know, as a political party, I said, you know, we're going through growing pains. One of the and I would even go further than just a party. Is our system needs some adjusting. There needs to be some amendments to the electoral law. You know, you can't. The way we do things as a party, when you bring you on as a candidate, we make the manifesto together.
Right.
So your input is in there. What has been happening is once individuals get elected, all of a sudden they don't see themselves in the manifesto. They don't see themselves following it, and for whatever reason, they don't think that the party should have any input. And I find that is absolutely incorrect. If you choose to run on a list with a political party, you're supposed to know what that party is about. Getting elected shouldn't change your mind. That means, for me, that was always your position. We lost two candidates declared themselves independent, and one was a fill-in. And look, we don't cut corners. You know, if we don't see eye to eye, is either you're going to declare yourself independent or we're going to distance ourselves from you using our articles of incorporation, and we cut ties. It makes no sense to drag on relationships that doesn't work.
And the reason why I say strange is because you're a small party with 2 seats in parliament, and never before we had a party that goes to parliament, and during that time, before the end of the parliamentary year, the party is no longer in parliament, and the seats are there that are won under the name of the party, but you're on the outside.
Well, according to the electoral law, the party does not own the seat.
Right.
But at the same time, when we had MP Bukampa and he was convicted and the seat had to go, he could no longer hold the seat came back to the party.
Right.
Now, as president, I shouldn't say this, but for me, I would say keep the seat. If the law allowed us to say keep the seat, I would say keep the seat. Because if you're telling me that an individual can get up and take the seat, but if something happens, the seat come back home, but it's not home. So for me, keep the seat and fix the problem. Because you can't say that you can declare yourself independent. For me, you know, and I'll tell you why I keep emphasizing on growing pains. Because if you have fundamental disagreements with your party, you're not seeing eye to eye, there's no reason why you can't sit there in the seat and vote against your party. There's no reason.
Well, there are parliamentarians who do that.
Right. So, and yeah, they do it, but not for too long.
Yeah.
They do it as a lead up to declare themselves independent to form a new government. That's usually what has been happening with us with this political structure over the last 12 years, right? People warm up to declaring independent, and again it's other parties saying, well, if you come, I'll give you this minister, I'll give you that minister, to form governments. And again, the focus is lost in what are we really trying to accomplish? Do we just want power at any cost? And that is one of the reasons why we severed ties with our last MP. That is why one of the reasons why we had serious discussions with the other two MPs, and they decided to declare themselves independent. But for me, it's either either. We're not in this for power. We're in this to take the country in a certain direction, and if it means we have to start over, so be it.
Let me ask you quickly, what are some of the issues that you have a lot of concern right now about St. Martin?
The lack of a plan is one of the major issues. Everything that's going wrong right now is going wrong because we have no plan. There is no plan. There is no semblance of a plan. Right now, if you're familiar with politics and you know the trajectory, this new word that has been, the trajectory of what's going on right now, you'll see that all MPs, coalition and no coalition, everybody's now trying to highlight themselves. The country is not going to be run from now until the next election. It's just going to be a highlight reel of what I did and what I accomplished. Small things. Those small things that they're highlighting is what you're elected to do. You're elected to accomplish. But we seem to we're gonna see a whole series of I did this, I moved that box, I bring this computer. We even had the last thing that made me laugh. It was funny to me because it seems like the sitting coalition now is on a marketing campaign. The whole MOU with the cruise line. Again, you had one minister saying they break records, they did it again, set a new trend, and then another minister sitting and signing the actual MOU, and then 2 or 3 days later, we did it. But we have that. The we should have been from the beginning. And then where's the minister of tea at in all of this?
Mr. Nicholas, just for other time, only have 30 seconds remaining, so in closing, it's all yours.
In closing, I just want to say, look, we have, as a country, we have to focus. We need to know, we need, as a people, we need to know what we want and where we want to go. As elected officials, we need to give direction and let people know where we're taking the country. We have all these bodies and all these people that's writing articles. We have I read an article there by I think from the assessment of the TBO, and they're saying they want the whistleblower policy to come into effect. But when you look at it, Mr. Hyman was a whistleblower and he lost his job. Yeah. So what we have to really know, what we're doing, what we're saying, what we want. Right. That's the only way we're going to move the country forward. I want to thank you for having me. I want to thank the listening audience for listening to me. It was a pleasure. You can call me anytime.
All right. It's good to have you in the program, and we'll certainly have you back. I want to wish you much success with the party. All right?
Thank you.
That's Mr. Nicholas he's president of the USP party. And that's it for now. I'll see you next time right here on Speaking of Everything.